There are two commentators, guys, who have effectively like cast a magic spell on me where I love hearing them talk, even if I totally disagree with them. One of them is Charles Barkley. The other one is Stephen A. Smith. They're so dynamic, charismatic, and authentic that even if I totally disagree with them, I'm like, God, I want to hear this out. I just like listening to it, right? So a great example of that is Stephen A. Smith was riding hard for the Live Golf League. For those of you who don't know, that's the Saudi Arabian golf league where they're paying some top golfers a tremendous amount of money. And what they're doing is what's called sports washing, which is like, hey, let's deflect and obfuscate from our human rights record by trying to give people entertainment. And so all the pro golfers who signed up to that, they know what they're doing. They know that they're taking money from a literal genocidal maniac. They know that. Saudi Arabia is doing a genocide in Yemen. They don't care. They behead people in the public square. They don't care. They just want the money, right? And so Stephen A. Smith was like riding hard for the Saudi Golf League. I think Charles Barkley was too. So those are just two examples of when I hear that, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, why? You guys are better than this. But every now and then, they'll have a take where I'm like, oh, back to being based. And so here's a good example of it here. Now, Stephen A. Smith, he's not the most political guy, and same with Charles Barkley. They're not the most political, but every now and then they'll weigh in on something or another. I'd say maybe 60% of the time they're correct. Stephen A. is interesting. I think he fancies himself sort of like a centrist. He's super wealthy, so he likes low taxes. He kind of has done interviews with like really odious right-wing figures like Sean Hannity. But in those interviews, sometimes he has moments of like, no, I'm pushing back on your point on this specific issue. So here's Stephen A. He happened to tune into Tucker Carlson on the night where Tucker Carlson was trying to downplay January 6th and act like, you've been lied to. In fact, they were all peaceful tourists, and here's a video of them not committing crimes, so obviously no crimes were committed. I'm being a little unfair there in summing it up, but you guys get the point. Anyway, so Stephen A. is going to respond to Tucker, and he nukes him from orbit here. Enjoy.
Tucker Carlson took the cake to me because he was trying to act like, they only showed, violent protesters as if, but they didn't show the peaceful protesters. And one particular individual, I forgot what his name was. He was wearing horns, some helmet on his head with horns or whatever, and how the police just escorted him in the chambers and stuff. These are peaceful protesters. Who the hell are you fooling? Who you playing with, Tucker Carlson? I'm not sitting up there and trying to call out Tucker Carlson. Overall, I don't watch him. I don't know much about him. I'm not trying to castigate him as a person or anything. I'm talking about this one incident right here. And there's one other incident I had from years ago. I forgot what the subject was about, something that he said that I didn't like. But this one incident about Tucker Carlson, you're full of it, bro. You're full of it. You're trying to sit up there and be so literal. You know that's not the point. For the record, Tucker Carlson is not wrong when he points out that not every protester was a violent protester. Of course we know that. But the fact of the matter is you had no business in the state capitol. That in and of itself was criminal behavior in the eyes of many at the very least. Didn't look up the law to see what specific law they were in violation of, but you crossed those barriers. You had protesters, insurrectionists kicking in windows, kicking down doors, damn near crushing police officers through the swirling doors. 4 people in the crowd died. 1 officer died. That's 5 people who died. You know what their names are, Tucker Carlson? Officer Brian Sicknick, Ashley Babbitt, Kevin Greason, Roseanne Boyland, Benjamin Phillips. Dead. Ashley Babbitt was killed by a Capitol police officer as she clambered through a broken window. Her last moments, captured from multiple angles on video, showed Miss Babbitt with a Trump flag knotted around her neck, being hoisted to the window as others in the mob shouted. Ladies and gentlemen, Tucker Carlson, this is the duplicity of certain things that you do. You see, if you go and you rob a bank, but a person didn't rob a bank, but he drove the getaway car, he's involved. A player for the Alabama Crimson Tide, a basketball player, Darius Miles, was just arrested on capital murder charges. He says somebody else shot a 23-year-old young lady who's the mother of a 4-year-old. Damn it, he still got charged. The insurrectionists, the violent ones, we know every single person there wasn't violent. But if the pathway that was set for you to walk into the Capitol peacefully and be peaceful while you got there was initiated by violent protesters, then they were the violent protesters. You may not have been violent, but you're involved, and you were complicit because your presence inside the Capitol was capitalized off of the violence that preceded your entry. Who don't know that? Who doesn't know that? One thing about Tucker Carlson is that we know he's smart. He's not stupid. He knows that. But you want to portray something else. Why? Why? Because you want to deflect attention away from the insurrectionist. Fair enough. Particularly in the political landscape that we're dealing with, you're going along partisan lines. Focusing on the insurrectionists favors the liberals. In your eyes, focusing on the peaceful protesters favors the conservatives. I'm guessing. No problem. Just say so. Instead of trying to act like, oh my God, the story wasn't really told. The real story wasn't told. The real story is that they were saying, hang Mike Pence. The real story is that they were looking for Nancy Pelosi too. And they wanted to get their hands on some of these elected officials. And God knows what would have happened to them had that happened. The Vice President of the United States and his family were there. There is no question that lives of elected officials were in danger. You know it, Tucker Carlson. Everyone knows it. They weren't endangered by everybody that was in attendance. But there were quite a few people who were there who were violent protesters. Over 400 people were arrested, and you got folks serving time in jail. The list goes on and on. We know what happened. And I just read you the names of 5 people who died. And you had the audacity to go on the air and try to highlight that there were peaceful protesters. And then y'all wonder why the hell the country appears to have gone to hell in a handbasket. It's because of this BS. BS like that. I'm not calling Tucker Carlson BS. I don't know him like that. I'm talking about his coverage on this specific story. We'll never have civility in this country when you're doing stuff like that.
Damn. I must say, I was pretty astonished too when I watched that Tucker segment with the argument that he was trying to make, because it was so immensely hollow. Some of the video he showed contradicted points he made. Like, you could see it wasn't that, oh, the cops escorted in, the QAnon shaman or whatever they call him. You could see him enter, and he wasn't escorted by the cops. Now, there was video of the cops sort of showing him around, trying to open doors. I don't know if they were trying to de-escalate or take him out, or if they were, sort of sympathetic. But to me, even with the video he showed, that was Occam's razor. And we saw other video from the day of cops opening gates and letting people through areas where they weren't allowed to go. Now, why did they do that? Because there were a lot of Capitol officers who were sympathetic to these protesters because they were right-wing protesters. They were on the side of Trump. You're telling me you don't think that at least, 50% of the cops were pro-Trump? Of course they were. Now, maybe some were pro-Trump, but they weren't in favor of the stop the steal election stuff. That's probably true as well. But, okay, let's cut that in half, too. You still got 25% of the cops who there's a question mark. By the way, there was a lot of investigations into these cops after the fact because that is Occam's razor. The argument that Tucker was trying to make is that you were sold a fraud. It was a total lie because, either the left is responsible for this somehow, I don't know, or it is solely the fault of the FBI did this on purpose. Let me explain something to you. Yes, the FBI absolutely has a history of sort of infiltrating movements, entrapping people. That's a big one. During the War on Terror, they would take some young Muslim guy who has a very low IQ and his special needs, and they would sort of entrap him and try to force him to do a terrorist attack, and they'd bust him and go, aha, we're heroes, we saved the day. Is it possible there were instances during January 6th of like some FBI agents were indeed trying to like entrap some people, get them to do violent things? That's absolutely possible. I do not rule that out for a second, and I think anybody on the left who does, I think is being a little naive. But having said that, even if that did exist, those specific people who got entrapped, yeah, they might have a claim of, hey man, I was hoodwinked here, and this is not fair, and I should be let off. Okay, fair enough. You could hear that out in court. But there's over 400 people with convictions. There were over 1,000 people arrested because there were that many people who were committing crimes, guys. So even if I grant them the FBI point, that doesn't absolve everybody there. And that doesn't mean that their crimes weren't crimes. If they jumped in with that mob mentality and partook in the violence, guess what? You're going to jail, son. There were over 400 convictions. They've got people like in the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. They got a bunch of them on like sedition charges because they have internal documents and texts of them stating exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it, trying to overturn the election. Windows were broken. Violence broke out. They crashed the Senate and they took pictures and stole classified documents. That's all on video. Their stated goal was to obstruct the congressional proceeding to get Biden approved. Well, that in and of itself is a crime. Never mind the other crimes. So they're up there saying, we would like to commit crimes. We are going to commit some crimes today. And Tucker's like, ha! I got the real story. There were no crimes. You've been lied to about all of it. It's like, what are you talking about, man? And that last point Stephen A. made, I think, was the best point. Like, look, man, if you're just open about the fact, if you say, I'm a Republican or I'm a conservative, and I'm about to give you my biased view of it to spin it in the direction that I prefer, and here's that argument, okay, at least you're coming as advertised. But he did couch it as, I'm going to give you the real truth about what happened on January 6th. And it was one of those moments of like, do you believe me or your lying eyes? Well, hey, dog, I saw the videos you played, and I also saw the ones you didn't. I saw the ones that we saw in that committee hearing, the January 6th committee hearing. They have a long video that goes through all of it, all the actual violent parts. You didn't show those parts because you're trying to build a narrative. That's what you're trying to do. I'm on team show all of the video. He's on team, let me cherry pick the ones that I think make my argument, and I'll show that video. And so here's Stephen A. Smith absolutely colossally wrecking him. And remember, despite his flaws, especially when it comes to the realm of politics, he's kind of a normie, right? He is a centrist. He's got opinions that are all over the map. But this is his reaction to it, which I think is a good reading of what like your average, somewhat apolitical American's reaction to this would be. It's like, who are you kidding? Who are you kidding? We have on video them chanting, hang Mike Pence. We have them on Trump on video giving a speech before this all occurred. We're going to march to the Capitol. Look, we got to be strong. We can only take back our country with strength. We can't be weak. I hope Mike does the right thing. What's the right thing? The right thing was saying, no, Trump actually won, and I'm not accepting Biden's victory. This is all on the record. And he ignored it all. Everything that doesn't build his shitty little argument for his ideology and his perspective. Embarrassing. So Stephen A. Smith regulating here on Tucker Carlson, and it was fun to watch. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.